Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So people are gradually flowing in. So welcome everyone. That is everybody's coming into the room.
Yes, good afternoon from Europe and good morning to the US. I think that's probably the best way of putting it, as people coming in. We'll give it a couple of minutes or a minute or so just to see as they flow in. We can probably begin, can't we, Mark?
Yeah.
I think if we just kick off, because it's very much I guess like a chat show rather than a webinar, a formal webinar. We've got some interesting content to share with you and a couple of really wonderful speakers that we think you'll be interested to hear from today. So I've just put the agenda up so you can see who we have. Marcus, that's coming up, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Good, okay. So just taking you through today's agenda, I'm going to give you a little introduction just to us, to Marcus, myself, and explain a little bit more about the Pure Digital show. And then Marcus is going to run through we want to focus on today, which is the Pure Digital survey that we've undertaken. And we think the results of that are interesting for you to hear. And then get a couple of our speakers involved, perhaps in terms of comment. And the two speakers we have are Nancy James, who is Global Head of Brand Innovation at HP. So hi to you, Nancy. And then Vincent van Herk, who is what he calls himself Design Connector for Driven by Design. And he's going to talk a little bit about a couple of the case studies that he's been involved with. I think Hermes is one of them, and give us a little bit of an understanding of what creatively can be done, particularly with digital print. So I'm going to just take you through an explanation, a little bit of who we are. And for some reason, oh, there we go. Let's go back there. So if you don't know Marcus and I, just to give you a quick outline, we are a couple of guys who run events in the print market. In fact, we've been around around in this market for around 10 years or so. Perhaps a little longer than that. And we were very much involved in the growth and development of the FESPA shows, which you probably know. And we left FESPA in 2011 and started to run our own events in the print market, EcoPrint, Imprint. And now we have a new event, which is called Pure Digital, that'll run next year in Amsterdam. And really, we always try and focus on niche markets, growing markets, opportunity markets, if you like, from the print industry. And I'll show you this graph because we use this as a way of kind of describing where the market is and where it's heading. And if you go back to sort of 2005, 2006, clearly digital print was a very exciting, innovative and growing part of the market. And that tended to start with the graphics market. And as you can see, looking at the current Rogers bell curve that we have around the digital print market, you can see that graphics is quite mature now. And there are some exciting and innovative new application opportunities for digital print, some of which are on this graph. And really, that's what we're kind of interested in looking at, those new markets and where possibly digital print can be used to open up new creative possibilities for business. But even with all those marketing opportunities, it's a tough one. But digital still represents less than 3% of all print, and we wonder why that is. And I guess print is often perceived as being a bit sort of old-fashioned, slow, a bit functional, not sexy, not kind of social media sexy, certainly by the people in the creative markets. And I think that's pretty clear that that's wrong. Digital printing is in fact fast, flexible, and often very clever. And I think what we're sensing is to truly grow the digital print opportunity, and in essence to grow demand for digital, we need to do a little bit of work on perhaps these creative, this group of people in the creative market. and actually show them what can be done, because it's those guys who are driving demand. And in turn, this just shows that for the manufacturers and also for the PSPs, if we can in turn create interest in the creative market, then we can drive demand upwards. So that's a little bit about what we thinking about. And actually the research was all about trying to identify whether this is completely accurate, because we'd had some round table discussions with the creatives, the brands, the agencies, the marketeers, and typically when we did this initial research, these were the kind of key areas we found out that they were feeling about print. They don't normally attend print shows. They want inspiration, new ideas. They want help and expertise. They always are looking for competitive advantage. They want originality and the ability to change things quickly and respond to consumer needs. And of course, they want to learn. So they're looking for understanding of the new opportunities. And in essence, that's where we got to with our show. This new idea of Pure Digital was all about trying to offer up an application showcase for digital print in certain segments, particularly in the home segment, the interior decor segment, the retail segment, and also in the work segment, particularly focusing on things like commercial print and the opportunities in there. And in essence, that's where we're at. We have a number of exhibitors and supporters on the show, and that's really good news. It's certainly driving forward, lots of different people getting involved in it. You know, we've got Antalis showing their interior design awards and the winners of those awards at the show. So we've got a nice group of people involved in it, and we've also got a number of associations working with us: Amsterdam Creative Industries, Association of Dutch Designers, various trade associations in the Dutch and Benelux market. So it's going forward very strong in terms of opportunity. But I'll return just back to this research issue. Are we right? Are we totally right with our kind of understanding of the market? And that's really what the webinar is about today. And so we undertook some research, and Marcus is going to tell us a little bit more about the findings from that research.
Yep,
Marcus.
sure. Yeah, thank you. You should be able to see my screen now.
Certainly can.
Good stuff. Yeah, so we did some original research which was more qualitative, but this is much more about just engaging online with people from all over the world, from the whole supply chain, from brands through to manufacturers of print technology. So a global mix of people, really just to sort of test opinion and whether our thinking was right, and perhaps where the opportunities, problems, challenges, and so on are. So I'm just going to take you through this, and again, I'm keen for it to be really conversational. So at any point, anybody on the panel like to join in. This first slide really I think underlines what Fraser just said. We asked people about existing exhibitions, and obviously a lot of shows are in the graphic space. And as you could see on the bell curve there, you know, graphics isn't in a state of massive change and innovation, and consequently people going to those shows are not necessarily valuing the experience anymore. That's a natural occurrence, I think, and it's not something we're necessarily gloating about. But what we're saying is maybe the industry needs something new and something different, because demand's there, but it's not being sated by the traditional shows. So this one really just sort of says that over 1 in 2 that responded said, yeah, okay, I agree with that statement. You know, I visit these shows, but these days there's a lack of innovation and things for me to discover. So the propositions that are available at the moment aren't necessarily working for everyone. And so partly the idea for Pure Digital is to create a bridge, to bridge that gap between two communities that perhaps should be one and the same, and that's the creative industry and the print industry. Secondly,
can I just jump in there? This is Nancy here. So, well, interestingly enough, in FESPA in Mexico, that's just passed, it was the first time that our large format division took a stand and had not a single piece of equipment on it. So they had the large format stand, similar size to what we would normally have at a trade show. But the team in Mexico decided to divide it up into areas around education and applications. without a single printer being present. And the number of leads and the conversations that they had were far richer, because I think they were being focused on applications and innovation as opposed to, here is a printer. So they were very, very happy with it.
You have to put it into context of sort of, when you're talking to creative people and when you're trying to address them, I guess they're not that interested in looking at a piece of technology or a machine. They're looking much more towards what the application can do, how it can add value, how it would sit in a shop environment, how it might work in a hotel or a retail space. So I guess that's logical, isn't it, I guess?
Exactly. And even for the printers that were there to buy printers, for them, it actually forced them to have a different conversation. So whereas sometimes they would be distracted by the feeds and speeds of these large format printers, they actually were less inclined to have that conversation, because what they were engaged with was actually the application, the output of what those printers enabled.
Yep. Makes sense. Marcus.
Yep. And the next question here, we asked, what's the biggest driver for growth really with digital print? Consumer change by a long chalk is what's driving this, and I think that's really where we see the print industry. Everybody within the print industry has really got to kind of align with. It's not really a case of whether you want to change or not. The consumer's defining this change. This is what everybody's saying here. Overwhelmingly, over 60% say the consumer change. Obviously, the creative industry is close to that consumer change and is doing what it can to remain relevant. And I think the whole kind of supply chain within print's got to align with that. And we see some people doing it, but we see more people not doing it. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Fraser.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I was going to actually ask Vincent, obviously from your point of view as coming from the design point of view, and I know there's a good case study. Does this resonate with you? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
There you go.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah, personalization is one hand on for the consumers. A big part of personalize themselves. You see it in all the other mega trends as well that are happening all over the world. More and more devices, and more people want to be individuals instead of being a crowd. But also on the side of from the designer's perspective, they want to see themselves in a more and more unique way as well by using digital print as an easy way.
Yeah, do you think that, Nancy, maybe you'd pick up on this, do you think that maybe printers are slightly guilty of being so focused on, I don't know, delivery, price, getting it out the door, that they're kind of guilty of being, unfortunately, under the pressure from their customers that perhaps means they can't change the way that things look? It seems a challenge for the printers. Is that right? Do you sense that?
It is a challenge for them. I think, those that have evolved and have this sort of marketing services side to their business as well are trying and achieving that change. But if the printers have not made that change, then they are in danger of staying at the end of the food chain, if you like. Yeah. So everything has been done from a creative perspective, and they are just then asked to print it, price it, deliver it, and then they get under pressure in that sense, and it's hard for them to break out of that.
It's less about sorry, go on, please.
And those are all things you can steer on: price, the product, how fast your printer is working. Those are all things you can grab and steer. And creativity is on the other hand. It's like the emotional part and the rational part. Those are two languages, and you have to learn both of them. And that's maybe goes to the Bridge the Gap title of this webinar. That's exactly where the point is, where you can do something new, where you can add value. I think creativity becomes a big thing before innovation starts. So you need a designer on your table, and the earliest way possible to understand them and to help your market give new or better values.
Yeah, and it makes sense what you're saying, because you know, let's be honest, a lot of print output is the same. The quality is, you know, roughly the same, not always exactly the same, but roughly the same. So what you were looking for is something, as you said, that adds value, that does something different, because the designer or the brand or the marketeer is wanting to add value in their retail space or in their hotel or in the environment that it's in. They want to get customers in there who go, wow, that's different. That feels different. That's
Yep.
impact.
Yeah.
And that's where
everybody's.
You know,
They all
you're right.
stick to the. I'm sorry, I don't say it right. They not all. A lot of them stick to the same plan and not go. I was at a textile wholesaler yesterday, and we had this conversation. And then one of their salesmen, he entered the room and he asked me, or he told me that he was getting to the end of the year, and now he has come up with some new material, and he showed it. It was really unique material, and he showed his fabric, this textile, to his customers, and he gets more questions back from it. So I said to him, so when you step out of the traditional path, then you get noticed, then you get the attention. And he said, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's
Makes
it.
sense.
I think if they can show, you know, people what they can do, but also if they do find themselves given a job that's already been created, a simple question around what's the purpose of this print?
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a wall covering, whether it's a poster, whether it's packaging, that will open up a whole conversation, and they'll suddenly discover actually it's for a launch event, or it's to change the mood of this, or it's customer loyalty, and then they can start to add ideas and value into that.
Nancy, I wonder if you took a group of printers and asked them that question, how often do you say to your customer, what is the purpose of this print? What are you trying to achieve with this?
Yeah.
Because in essence, if they did that every time, they'd be able to add greater value to what they deliver, wouldn't they?
They would, and you know, I go back to this phrase of one of the things we do with our customers is we have a program called the HP Advantage program, and it's all about helping our customers sell the value of what they've just invested in by changing the conversation with their customers.
Yeah, it makes sense. Marcus, would you like to carry on taking us through the research?
Before I finish this slide, only 10% believe print service providers are driving any change. So I think that's kind of underlines what you guys are saying. Really on that consumer driving thing, obviously the world of retail is massively changing. Online continues to grow. Of course it does, and it does in principle because we've ceased to like the experience of shopping, particularly for functional items. So I think that will continue to grow, and that's having a play for print, but obviously it's changing the world of retail, and retail's having to adapt quite quickly to optimize their offering really because consumers are spending a different amount of time in shops. So we've seen the growth of value chains like Aldi and Lidl continue to grow double digit every year. It's not just about the fact it's cheap, it's actually about operational efficiency, and print and self-ready packaging and corrugated is really growing to adapt to that, because people at Aldi and Lidl want product on the shelf as quickly as possible. For consumers, it means they like this experience because it's simple. A typical one of these shops has 3,000 stock items compared to 50,000 in a typical large supermarket. It just makes life easier for consumers. We've also seen the growth of convenience. That continues partly because we're now, 5 years ago we shopped, I think it was 100 times a year on average for food, and now we're doing it 200 times a year, but we're not shopping for a month, we're shopping for a couple of days, basically because we don't like the experience, because it's frankly, who likes going to a large supermarket and spending a couple of hours there when you can do it much quicker. This is in Seattle, this Amazon Go thing, if for Prime customers, you literally walk in, grab your stuff, walk out again, you don't need to speak to anybody. It's all about convenience. On the other side, and that suits me, that's the way I like to shop, brand retail on the other side of the coin is growing. Now that obviously means a brand like Superdry, it's about experience, about immersing the consumer, immersing themselves in the, in the brand and the value, so that the shop becomes a lot about textures and feel and all of these sort of sensory things. And obviously print has a role to play there, but it's not about interrupting people. It's not about sales. It's much more about experience. Quite often people don't buy at that moment. They'll buy online later, but they want to be part of the brand, and that's how the brand connects, and that's changing too on a different level. So print in all of this has got a role to play, but equally it's the I guess it's the print outfit that can really think like a brand and think about what the customers want and provide them with that value, as opposed to being transactional and reactive, being a partner, being a real part of that process, that creative process. So that's a little bit about change. And going into what application do you think offers the biggest and best opportunity at the moment for digital printing? And decor seems to be in a real sweet spot at the moment. And panel, please tell me why. I mean, but I think one of the reasons is the technology is so good now, and it isn't just HP's latex as well. That's which was a leader, no doubt. We're getting rumours of Zycon are out there. We've got KM, we've got Industrial Inkjet. I've got a wall coverings machine that's coming out. Canon are doing stuff with the as well too. So there's much more availability of it. The quality's got better, but it has to be the consumer world is really increasing that demand. The commercial market, hotels, museums, hospitals. Vincent's presentation will do a better job.
Vincent's going to talk about this, isn't he? He's going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. But that has to be. It's in a real sweet spot. It's a real sweet spot at the moment. Packaging clearly is also strong, and I think that's again close to consumer, isn't it? It's really where the consumers changing what they're doing. Packaging is a phenomenal way, not only of obviously protecting a product and the identity of it, but it's really selling that product, isn't it? And personalization and customization again. But let's not look down at commercial printing or even at POS. Both these markets are arguably much more mature. Technology's been around for longer, but we see a lot of examples where brands, for example, like Superdry, are using commercial digital printing to really reach out. Big data is a massive issue. I was at a marketing event yesterday. That's all they're talking about. And that kind of, if your customer understands you and you get a magazine in the post that's from them, it isn't full of loads of other ads. It's about the experience. Again, think of that Superdry example. And not only that, the content's geared to you because they know what you like and don't like. Incredibly powerful, isn't it? So I think
this is interesting, isn't it? Because basically, if you think about it, a few years ago there was a conversation that said print is dead. Print is dead because basically social media is taking over this, and this aspect particularly of magazines and books and all these kind of things. That was all being said that that was the end of print. But the reality is what's happening is there's this, exactly as you said, there's a sweet spot where this is part of the experience element. So some of these things, you go into a supermarket, they're producing their own magazines at the front on a weekly basis, on and high quality. It's positioning the brands in the supermarket at a certain level. It's so there's a sense in a way that it's returning, isn't it? It's just more focused, it's targeted.
It's more targeted, and it's more thought through. It's not. It's content. That's the word, isn't it? It's about content that's clever, targeted, and using data and digital print. And digital print production is so good now, isn't it? It's so good.
Nancy, you particularly, obviously HP are doing quite a lot of this. The Indigo's been a great example of where this kind of personalization of printed product, has made a big difference. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I think, personally, I think all four categories are very exciting in their own right. And commercial and retail is as exciting, if not more exciting than it's ever been. But it's more ubiquitous, as you say. Indigo's been around for some considerable time. I think what's changed in terms of, that they say here the biggest and best opportunity for digital print at the moment is because decor, with these eco-friendly inks like the latex, it's opened up opportunities to be able to have decor that wasn't there before. With the packaging, it's the same. The large sheet size enabling packaging applications wasn't there before. And the Indigos being able to do flexible packaging wasn't there before. So these two categories have now come to the fore, and they're very exciting because they're so new. And because of the trends you mentioned earlier with personalization, whether it be having, wallpaper that was your choice in the way exactly as you wanted it, or whether it's having, you know, your name and your photo on a Nestle Kit Kat bar. That's so exciting and new. So I think this is why the creatives are latching onto this.
Yeah. Well, it adds value. It's adding value, isn't it?
Exactly, and I think if the PSPs, the printing community, can get to grips with being able to excite their customers about these applications, I think it's got a massive future.
Yeah, dead right, dead right.
Marcus, what you do is,
oh, sorry,
Vincent.
What you do is you don't sell, maybe you don't sell print. Well, you do sell print, but the thing you're really selling is, for example, to a hotel, is sell value in followers or in likes or in positive reactions on TripAdvisor, or and when you working for a hospital, you're selling like a good mood, like a softer clinical experience in there. And you don't sell print, you sell like these wall coverings with a certain content and a certain design, and you talk about that. You don't talk about a square meter of the wallpaper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more and more people are realizing that if you can make people feel something, they will remember. Good or bad, they will remember. So if you walk into a hotel and they've got a beautiful, you know, environment created, you'll remember that. If you have some packaging that's beautifully created, you'll remember that. It's about making people feel and connecting to the emotions.
I actually even think that social media has done print a massive favor here, because if you are looking at your hotel options and you're looking down TripAdvisor or Booking.com and it says something like, this hotel, the decor was tired, the environment was not very nice, that's a really negative thing. So if you can change the decor environment, you know, constantly refreshing, then it becomes part of the social media story that goes with it.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Marcus, next slide, I guess.
What do you think digital print still represents? Sorry, why do you think digital print still represents only a small percentage of all printing? And again, that really the creative industry just doesn't understand its true potential. I think there is a misnomer that it's a media that can't keep up, that isn't relevant. The reality is we use the term digital print 4.0. I think more and more it's going to become integrated, or the possibilities are that it will be. If the creative industry understood better its potential, the point we're making is print becomes strategic at that point and not tactical. And I think too often it's a tactical afterthought, and actually it needs to be centrally positioned at the beginning of a process by influencing creatives. That is when it will occur. It's the research we've done, and one of the key things that digital print does is liberates design, doesn't it? It frees a designer from worrying about stock. It frees that by its nature means designers are under pressure, because you've got a huge stock item of whatever it is, you're going to want it to sell, and if it's not sold, it's the responsibility of the design. So I think if the creative industry just understood its true potential, as it says in this survey here, then demand would grow.
Yeah, agreed. Next slide.
When purchasing this digital print, what is it that you believe creators really want to know? I wasn't surprised by this. Over 40% said they want to know what is possible with new applications so they can grab attention through innovation. As you said at the beginning, Fraser, it's new ideas, it's being different, it's pushing boundaries, being noticed, because the world is so super fast, bombarded with information, sensory overload, all of that. They're under pressure to just grab attention, even if it's just for a moment, enough for people to go, you know what, that's really clever, then share it on social media, then tell their friends. Then you've got the attention of a customer base. But they can't, what they're looking for in essence by they're saying it is help. They want help, and the help needs to come from the print industry. Yeah. I don't think it's enough to say that the creative industry is just not thinking about print. It's their fault. They're hugely distracted. And frankly, we could argue the divide is there because we failed as an industry, haven't we?
Yeah, Nancy, could I ask? I mean, HP is a good example that obviously, a lot of money, big player, and very good at doing this. But do you think perhaps some of the other manufacturers, some of the other organizations who are part of the the industry are not doing such a good job, or what do you think about it?
Oh, I think most of the big manufacturers really recognise that any support they can give to their customers in being able to help them sell the value of digital printing, they then do it. And I think most of the manufacturers have different types of programs to assist and enable and support their customers. I think it's really come to the fore in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. But of course, it's a big undertaking. And the other side of it is that you also are facing an industry potentially that has been used to having technical training over the years, but actually marketing or sales training is less comfortable for them. So actually getting some of the customers to engage in that in the first place is a challenge as well. So, I think the manufacturers have a role to play, and I think the people buying the presses also have a role to play in wanting to engage.
Yeah, and I think what you've just said is spot on. We've been in the industry for quite a long time and have seen clearly that in the last 5-6 years, more and more manufacturers are engaging at different levels with their customers through user events, through things like this, webinars. Difficulty for me is it doesn't seem to be getting through. There's somehow, as we said right at the beginning, a gap that doesn't seem to be being filled. Don't quite understand what it is.
I wouldn't say that was strictly true because, I can only talk from our statistics, but year on year, the number of pages that are printed grows significantly in the double-digit range. Yeah. So, there is a shift from analog to digital. Are the printers selling the full capabilities of the kit they have? Some are, and some are doing a fantastic job and they benefit from that, and some are doing less well. But on the whole, the industry, the pages digitally printed are growing, I think, in most sectors.
Yeah. So you feel that it's going in the right direction, maybe not as fast as we would have liked. Manufacturers are doing a good job of educating their customers, but not perhaps getting through to everyone. Sorry, go on, Vincent. Was that you?
No, it was me actually. Sorry, just the point there, that the second point on this is they want to work in collaboration, and I wonder whether the manufacturers would ever consider working in collaboration
with
each other to tackle this problem.
That's an interesting story as well. I think, like Nancy told us, that they need new skills as well. All these PSP or printing companies, or maybe even sign makers. A few years ago, this this government hall came up to the PSP together with the interior architect with a USB stick with files and said, "Wait, can you help me? Can you print these files and put them on those walls?" And then you got this collaboration. Nowadays, this government hall comes up and says, "Well, this is my government hall, and I want to have another atmosphere in here. I want to have a new experience in here. Please, printing company, can you help me?" So we need to get together with the designer and look for these chances, for these new markets. Because blurring boundaries, that's what's happening. Blurring boundaries.
So actually, maybe it's the other end of that chain, if you like. Maybe the area that needs to be worked on is not so much manufacturer to printer, because Nancy's telling us that every manufacturer is doing a good job, or pretty much. Maybe it's, as you say, Vincent, maybe it's the printer to the end user, printer to the designer, printer to the marketeer, printer, that relationship that needs improving.
I think that the manufacturer has to help the PSP, and we need to help the PSP to get involved with the designers and their end users.
Yeah, I think you're right. Makes sense.
I think the manufacturers, and this is something that we've started doing in the last couple of years, can also help the PSPs by helping the end users understand what's possible.
Absolutely.
So, we've been going to Interpack, and we've been going to more end user shows now. In effect, as an education process for the end users to show them what's possible. So it's a sort of helping our customers at these events is like a lead generation exercise for them.
That makes sense.
They don't have the bandwidth, a lot of the customers, to do it, or the presence. And so having the manufacturers also helping in that regard will create the interest and awareness of what's possible, and then help also, create more applications and innovations.
And hopefully, obviously, and that make complete sense that HP in effect helping to connect to the two groups and getting closer in effect to the end user group, and that's pretty much what our Pure Digital show is about. So hopefully that same message is there. Marcus, next slide.
Yeah, how do we grow demand? So it's kind of moving on really. 60% say by working together. I think personally, don't see enough of this collaboration. I think people are very defensive and fearful of working with each other, manufacturers included. I think there's an over competitiveness, and I think there is a way of working together through events like Pure Digital, actually, where it's about perhaps promoting the benefits and values of digital printing that tend to be unified amongst us all without being overly sensitive about it, because actually that's the industry we're in, and there's a huge amount of growth potential for all of us. So I think that goes from manufacturers, printers, all together really, all part of that. It's the key to, I think, the future in terms of business in general, is that kind of collaboration. I don't know if anybody else has got a comment on that.
Oh, that's the opposite of what designers do. They all share knowledge.
Yeah,
I'm always into if you share knowledge, we get our best cases by sharing knowledge.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
because they see you as a specialist in that way. And if you as a PSP or as a sign maker or if you share knowledge, then you can gather up together and create new values.
Yeah, that's good to hear, actually, isn't it? Just conscious of time, Marcus, because we'd like to get both Vincent and Nancy to share a few things with us. So how are we doing on last couple of slides?
that's
I think,
right.
isn't it?
A lack of commitment from print companies to connect with and inspire the creative industry with this one. So I think this is just the themes are coming through all the time, aren't they? There's good work being done, but in essence, the pressure seems to be coming back to the print industry here. A lack of commitment from print companies to connect with their customers on a level that inspires them. And as Vincent just said, they're happy to be inspired. They're receptive. So why aren't we doing it? Next question here. Digital print has a positive future in the new digital landscape, but in order for it to play a role, sorry, I'm moving boxes around. In order for it to play a key role in the print industry, must improve at communicating its value. Again, it just follows on from the last one, really. Yeah, this has just come through. This is what people are saying. It's a key problem. But where there's a problem, there's an opportunity. Yeah. So the ones that really grasp that opportunity are going to be around in 5-10 years time. But the ones who don't, and I think there's a lot of printers that got digital kit, but just use it like they would use an offset, and are just kind of going, well, actually, yeah, we now print digitally, but they're not actually using it to its capability, or you know what I mean? So I think and that I have to say is down to the individual. If you're curious and if you're entrepreneurial and you have a mind that wants to try things out, you're going to do it. And if you're waiting for the phone to ring or the email to come in, it's not going to happen.
Don't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also, I think it's probably a level of confidence, because they probably feel a little bit uncomfortable speaking the language of a creative and treading, that ground. And they need some success in order to have confidence to do it, because what they tend to do historically is respond to a quote. They're not bought in early enough. And I think they'll be surprised, for those that don't do it, how excited and receptive creatives and designers will be once they start to open up their toy kit, because this toy chest is full of lovely bells and whistles that designers and creatives would love. They just don't know they're there.
Exactly. I was at an event yesterday which was attended by creatives and marketing people, and they're really nice people. They talk to you. They start the conversation. It's not like some of the print events I've been to where people don't talk to one another. It's a really engaged market, and they're really nice people. So it's actually quite an exciting opportunity. But anyway, last slide. Great growth.
Marcus, I was just going to say there's a question that's just cropped up, which is interesting because it actually asks a little bit about whether there is a trade-off of print from offset to digital that means that there isn't a growth where you kind of expect it to be. Nancy, I guess you're probably the best person to answer this. Do you think there's a bit of a trade-off between offset and digital in terms of...
The trade-off will be in the very short run work. So there's always going to be a break-even point at which, you know, setting up a conventional press does not make sense. So that work will naturally go digitally, because it just makes more economic sense. And very often all digital printers will have an element to varying degrees of that type of work, and then the rest of it will be value-added work, which will be completely new.
Right. Thanks for that question. Sorry, Marcus. Next slide.
Yeah, just basically the estimates for growth are really high, but again off a relatively small base. But still, it's really positive growth growth expectations. So really the conclusion point now. But there you go. I'm not going to read out each line, but we've kind of covered it anyway. But yeah, the conclusions are there really. Okay, thank you.
So we're going to ask Vincent to give us a very short presentation, I guess, a little bit of a...
Nancy.
Oh, whichever. We can do Nancy first. Sorry, well, let's have Nancy first. Sorry, my fault. Nancy, would you like to just share with us your presentation? I know that you're going to... Marcus, have you got that there?
Yeah, I've handed it over. So should
let me know when you can see the slides.
See it?
We can see the slide. Thank you very much. Keep reinventing. That's perfect.
Okay, thank you. So yes, so keep reinventing. This is the theme for HP, and one of the reasons why we are so excited about talking to the creatives and the designers. And you know, latex and interior decor is an area that's growing. We've seen the statistics, and visually, the effects that you can create are really quite stunning. And these areas are really around helping to change the experience. And when I say change, that's the key thing. We mentioned earlier that if a hotel gets a rating and that says the decor is poor, you now have it within your gift to be able to do something about it in a very timely manner and really make a huge impact. And I think what's very important about this is that design really matters. And with digital, you can prototype in a very short run and then do the design that you want and change it very frequently. So it's very agile in terms of what you can do. So the decor, I'm going to leave to Vincent to talk more about. But what I'd like to talk a little bit about is about the packaging opportunities for digital print. Everybody will be very familiar with mass production. So these are large runs, typically non-variable. But there are cases where small companies like Forza, for example, are doing large runs with digital technology because of the impact that they get from what they're able to achieve through the colors and the vitality. There's also strategic production. So Asahi in Japan, they had the G7 summit and they created different carton packs for each of the venues of the meetings for the G7 summit. So again, strategically talking to an event that was happening within Japan. You then have variable content. So you'll be very familiar, I'm sure, with the Share a Code campaigns that have been happening in the last, 5 years around the world. Everything that I show you here is done on HP technology. Most of it is on HP Indigo technology. And what's interesting about the variable content is people tend to think of these as personalized labels, and when in fact they're not. They're pre-selected names that are pre-printed centrally and then sent to store. So from a supply chain point of view, it's a very reasonably simple execution. It isn't full personalization as you would know it. You then have randomized production. So L'Oreal does this beautifully when the Toy Story films come out. They do versioned runs of the characters and the children want to buy them in store. And it creates a momentum in terms of having to have the new designs each time, but not only the new design, but also the set of the new designs. These are all made possible with digital printing. Once you get to hyper customization, this is something I'm going to talk about in more detail in a moment, but this is about having every single output as a truly unique output. So it's randomized 100%, and I'm going to talk about that. And then finally, you get to the personalized, which is the fully customized experience where you would go online on an e-commerce website, upload images like the Nestle Kit Kat, for example, in the UK, and then receive your product in the post, which you've actually designed. So going back to the randomized print, there's a product that we have called HP Mosaic, and we've made a light version of this software, and we've called it D for D, Designer for Designers. And we launched it on November the 2nd in London as a beta. And as you can see, we've had a lot of press coverage with this trial. And what we've tried to do is enable the creatives to use technology to help them create very unique experiences through the technology. To do this, we worked very closely with Smirnoff, with Silas Amos, and with the Arza twins. And the strapline, if you like, the brief was everyone the same, everyone is different. We gave them the software and they started to play with it with regards to the Smirnoff brand. They came up with these block colors. They then designed these different heads that they would then use. They created some icons that would be going into the mix. It's really like a recipe. You start to build it from your creations. They then created the bodies that would go with the heads and the icons and the colors. They used the curve of the Smirnoff logo to create some of these background seed patterns. They then started to pull in the Smirnoff logo itself. And then they created this seed file that would be used in the final execution. So the software itself took all these different elements as seed files. It plays with algorithms, and you can fix certain elements of the designs as you go. So, for example, the Smirnoff logo would be very important, and the heads themselves. But everything around these heads and certain parts of the heads would be varied on every single image. So this created a really amazing piece of creative. And this was the campaign, if you like, that we used to launch the D4D software on November the 2nd. Smirnoff were very kind to lend us their brand to do this. Cool. And the objective here was to enable designers to have a technology where sort of man meets machine, if you like. They can use their creative juices, feed the seed patterns in, and create these things. And the output, obviously because it's digital, it could have been the bottles, which we had there. We had posters, we had corrugated heads printed. The floor was latex printed. We had commercial printing with unique giveaway posters and labels and such like. And the event was really quite something. And the offer that we made to the creatives that attended, we had 120 of them join us that day, was to be part of the beta process, because we want to see what experiences they have with the software, how they interact with it, what they do with it. And then they also had access to these training videos that the Arza twins and Silas and Smirnoff were part of, to help people understand how to use the software and get the best out of it. So my offer to people on the call here, if you're a designer or a creative and you'd like to understand the capabilities of HP digital printing more, please feel free to go on to the website here, to the link, register, and you'll be able to download the software. By all means, go on to the training videos and view those. And we also then have the ability for you to join a WhatsApp group where the designers are collaborating and talking to each other with HP, helping them understand how to play with this software. And as I said, you know, I was very excited about those 4 elements on the chart earlier, whether it's GCP, general commercial print, or point of sale, or packaging, or decor. I think we're at a very exciting stage and people are just starting to get to grips with what's possible. So that's what I wanted to share with you.
Really interesting.
Please feel free to.
Really interesting. I was going to suggest, shall we have Vincent's presentation now, and then we can maybe have a few questions at the end for both Nancy and Vincent?
Yes, by all means.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. That's fantastic.
It's great, Nancy. Really love this.
Thank
Really
you.
interesting. Yeah, really creative.
Can you see my screen?
We can.
Yep, I can. Yep.
What I want to show you is just one example of a journey that you can have with a designer by just having the conversation. Like it's been told before, Nancy just said it, and Fraser, I think, said it as well. I was at a designer studio a few weeks ago, and on their front door was, "Please knock the door. We are very approachable." They are. Please go to visit these designers, visit them all, visit all design weeks, and start a conversation. They're really open for it. We're driven by design. I think it's my job to bridge the gap between business and design. It's an example I want to show you, a journey we did with the Dutch designers Kiki and Joost. And what she does, Kiki, what she does is watercoloring, acrylic. She does a lot of things, but this is one thing she did. And when I was at Faber Exposize, the Dutch printing company, we did a great project together. I met her and saw these great paintings she made. And we talked about to translate them into digital print and to use them in a project. So what she did, she translated. And in the beginning, there was like this, like what we started this webinar, old, slow, not the right saturation or not the right contrast. It's great in usage, and I have to convince her, and we did. So she came up with a great project she did for Hermès, the French fashion label. And it first started at the Dutch warehouse, Bijenkorf, it's like Harrods in London, and all shopping windows were dressed with these like acrylic designs. And when we did this, it was picked up by Hermès, and they placed it in other shops as well all over the world. So it went to Paris, Milan, Vancouver, and I believe this is Dubai Mall. It ended up there. So you start this journey together with the designer in different projects. After we went to this Hermès project, we did more of them. She used her drawings into the background of a presentation she did with a new collection at Design Miami Basel. It's like this big art and design fair. It's in Basel as well, in Switzerland. And she used it as a background. She made it a big Bedouin tent and showed her collection in there. It's a great way of presenting a new collection in a complete different setting. After that, she went into her mind and came up with a scenography she used in a project at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. All walls were created with her acrylic painting. So she painted it on just small boards of 20 centimeters wide. We scanned it, we reproduced it in a certain way, and we blow them up to big, large scales of 20, even 25 meters long. So using this technology, you walk into the designer's mind. And when you first see like all these little like paper fibers in the acrylic paper, you now see them as like big cables coming up on the walls, and it really makes the art in the room stronger. So when Rijksmuseum seen all this, they say, well, can we use it more often in other shows? So what they did, they rebuilt the idea, and they came up with a new project. It's called Catwalk. It shows like all these dresses from centuries ago, and they created all the back walls with a photographic art, a style art of the dresses you can see in there, and they translated it into wallpaper as well, large scale, up to walls of 20-25 meters long and maybe 5 or 6 meters height. So what I'm trying to say is that when you just start a conversation with a designer, visit them, try to understand them, and try to help them understand you, you can come up with one project with an acrylic painting translated into digital print, and then all of a sudden you end up in one of the greatest museums in the world. And I think that's really important to know. Start a conversation, and that's what I'm trying to do: help companies and designers to understand the conversation. And I'm very approachable as well. So
thanks,
They're
Vincent.
very beautiful images.
Yeah, really strong, really strong. Thank you for that.
thank you.
So, any questions, Nancy? Any questions of Vincent? Vincent, any questions of Nancy?
Well, I just think those images are absolutely stunning, and seeing those dresses in the forefront of the walls that actually mirror the design on the dresses is just beautiful. I think it's great.
Very strong. Can I just ask you, Nancy, with the vodka bottle designs? I mean, when you showed this to people, the design, the people at the creative end, what were they saying? Were they liking it? Do they like it? Is it inspiring people?
They're very excited. It's very different for them, of course, because you're asking them to, and a lot about the analog to digital is you're asking people to change what they do, and it's changing behaviors, it's changing processes. So there is a change that has to occur. The excitement is definitely there. It's now trying to make it easy enough so that people make that change. And I'm very excited because the designers that have signed up for the beta program are on this WhatsApp group, and the chatter that's going on is just inspiring, and also the way they are helping each other. So, everyone isn't finding it as easy as everyone else to download the software or to interact with it, but they're helping each other. And one of you made the point earlier about collaboration, and I think that is the key word going forward. Yep. People need to help and work together.
I think it's the same way in fashion, and I think I mentioned it before in several locations. I think it's the same in fashion. If you gather up with a designer and you start building on this masterpiece, that's the exact way they do it in fashion. When you see it haute couture and you see like Victor and Rolf and you see like this all these big shoulders, and my daughter says, well, you can't wear that in the streets, but that's design. That's how it works, and they're not going to sell this to walk on the streets. But what they do is that after that, these little black dresses, the mainstream comes up. So my suggestion would be gather up with a designer, start a co-creation, and build a masterpiece together, and then make the difference so people come up to you and other designers get like plugged as well, and they love to work with you. Absolutely, they love to work with you then.
I think what you're saying, both of you, what you're clearly saying is that this is about collaboration, perhaps putting two different breeds of people together, the designer, the creative types, and actually also linking in with the printers who are going to deliver it, whatever it might be, and in some way connecting those two groups together to kind of to start talking to each other, surely, because if you start talking to each other, they're going to be inspired by the possibilities, and that's got to be good for both print and design, and inevitably it's going to be good in terms of innovating what we do.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for diversity in a process, and also respecting the different craftsmanship that everyone brings to the party. And it is craftsmanship, whether it be a designer, a creative, or a printer. Each person has their own craft that they're bringing to the table, and to just take the time to understand, what collectively that might deliver, I think could be very valuable.
Yeah, totally agree. Marcus, did you want to say any final words as we run up to the top of the hour?
Yeah, I mean, basically, there's still a divide, and that divide can be bridged, clearly. There's a receptive community that wants help, both from what Nancy and Vincent were saying, but also in the research. There's a desire for collaborating. So printers perhaps may not be used to that, but actually, if they try, like Vincent suggested, co-creating something, there's once you've been part of that creative process, it starts to become normal. And that new normal probably is that collaborative approach that he suggests there. Print means that printers need to step up. Some already are there, but the next generation need to make that step up, I think. It's obvious to me, but making these new connections will lead you on that path. It might not seem obvious how to get there right now, but by making those new connections, events are great things to attend because that's puts you into contact with people, and we happen to have one called Pure Digital, obviously, that's designed to help people make that new connection. But despite all of the kind of challenges and all of that we've focused on, there's strong and bullish growth because the consumer world wants and demanding all of the attributes of digital printing. So it's all really, really positive. Yeah. And those that take that opportunity will thrive.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate what Marcus has highlighted there. Is one of the things, the vision we had with our Pure Digital show was to bring printers together with the creative market. As you said, there are a few events out there that are starting to do this in the packaging world, things like home textile, but we believe that it needs focused events of some sort to bring these people together and start talking the same language, and that is really what the concept of Pure Digital is all about, and we think Amsterdam obviously is the right place for it. We hope that both Vincent and perhaps Nancy will join us there in April, and I would just say thank you to both of you and to Marcus for sharing the information on the research, which is, I believe, available. So if anyone's interested in a copy, we can PDF it over. But thank you to the both of you for giving us your time, and we appreciate both excellent presentations and lots of interesting content. So thank you to all of you.
Excellent.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you, Vincent.
See you soon.
Yeah, take care. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.